Wrapping up my winter reading on a snowy, super cold day just felt like the right thing to do. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am indeed wrapping up the books that I put on my winter TBR for this year. I make a seasonal TBR every single season, but for winter, I condense it down a little bit. It is usually 6 books, but for winter, I bring it down to 4. That is because I know how my reading goes in the lead up to Christmas and in the first couple of months of the year. It takes me a little bit of time to get the wheels rolling again. So, instead of the usual 6, I had 4 books that I wanted to concentrate on for the season, and this went rather chaotically. There was 1 book that I didn't start at all, 1 DNF, and then 2 books that I did actually get finished. We'll start with the book that I didn't actually get to at all, and that was This Year Will Be Different by Maeve Binchy. This was a bunch of interconnected short stories, and I thought that this would be perfect for that kind of no man's week between Christmas and New Year when there is nothing to do. There's not a whole lot on TV. All you're doing is eating leftover Christmas food, going to visit family, sitting on the couch under a blanket. I thought that this would be the perfect time to pick that up, but I never got around to it. I think I actually even left it in Berlin while I was spending Christmas with my family. So this one just never really crossed my path. I am still going to try and get to it, maybe next winter when the weather is still a little bit cold, because the cover of this really does give me seasonal winter vibes. Maybe now that the weather is super cold in Berlin anyway, I might find some time to read it in the coming weeks or so. I'll just have to see how it goes. The book that I sadly DNF'd was Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring-Blake. I was so excited about the prospect of this book. It was a second chance romance, which doesn't usually work for me, but it was by Ashley Herring-Blake, which has always worked for me in the past. This book is about Charlotte, who was left at the altar 5 years ago, but is living in New York at the moment and is kind of trying to build her life back up. And in the process of doing so, she's been a member of a musical quartet in the city. Sloane, who is one of her band members, has invited everybody back to Colorado to spend Christmas with her family, to relax, to get ready for some gigs that they've got coming up. And while Charlotte is in Colorado with Sloane's family, she also meets Sloane's sister Adele, who has brought a friend with her too. The friend that Adele brought is Brighton, who is exactly the same person that left Charlotte at the altar 5 years ago. This should have worked for me. Like I said, it was an Ashley Herring-Blake book. It was a small town romance, but there were so many things about this book that just didn't gel with me. I really, really need to get behind the couple when I am reading a romance book. There doesn't have to be a single second where I am thinking this couple is not going to make it for even 5 minutes past the end of this book. And that thought was rife throughout my time reading this. I just never for a single second thought, hey, you know what, when this book is finished, Charlotte and Brighton are definitely going to still be together in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. And that is a huge problem when you're reading a romance book. You need to be able to get behind the relationship. You need to be able to believe in it. But when they treat each other in this way, it's really hard to believe that that's going to happen. It turns out that Charlotte and Brighton had actually not gone through with the wedding because Brighton was worried about moving to New York. Brighton and Charlotte had hooked up with each other the morning of the wedding, and then Brighton walked out on her a couple of hours later. Now, I am being so serious when I tell you this. If that happens to me on the morning of my wedding, I am going on a murderous rampage. I cannot understand how Brighton came to Sloane's house and then basically begged Charlotte to forgive her, but also gave her so much hassle and so much grief about not forgiving her. I just could not get on board with any of the characters in this book. There was like one person in here, I think his name was Weston or William, and he was one of the townspeople who Charlotte was getting to know at some kind of events that the family were going to. And I really wanted to see the two of them get together. I really wanted to see them figure out a relationship for one another. But for Charlotte and Brighton, the road really had to end there. On then to the books that I actually did read across winter. And the first one was The Christmas Swap by Talia Samuels. I know that there is another book that was written by an Australian author about this, and that was a little bit of the holiday situation. But I really enjoyed this one. This is about Ben, Margot, and Ellie. Ben and Margot are spending Christmas together at Ben's family home, and Margot is pretending to be his girlfriend. Ben has had a little bit of bad luck when it comes to relationships, and Margot just basically wants somebody to spend Christmas with her. So, under the pretense that Margot and Ben are in a super happy relationship, Margot goes along because she's actually going to be doing a couple of things for him work wise. She's working as a social media manager for his company in a kind of a freelancing situation, but they've got a couple of campaigns coming up that they just really want to iron out. While Ben and Margot are there, Margot is introduced to Ben's sister Ellie and she falls in love with her straight away. But Ellie has really got some reservations about Margot. It turns out that Ellie is really concerned about her brother, and particularly that Margot might be a little bit of a gold digger. Ellie makes it her entire MO for this book to undermine Ben and Margot's relationship, because every single time that there is a discussion about work being brought up, Margot's eyes will start to widen, or she'll get really excited when they're talking about money or about all of the lavish gifts that Ben has been giving her. And Ellie takes this as a sign that Margot is just looking at Ben with pound signs in her eyes. There are a couple of really nice scenes where Margot and Ellie actually do get to know each other. They go out to a Christmas market in the local town, for example, and when they discover that they've got a little bit more in common than they were expecting to, sparks do start to fly between the two of them. There is, however, quite a lot of miscommunication in this book, and that isn't usually something that I gel with. Obviously, there is the big miscommunication with Ben and Margot to his entire family, but there's also quite a lot from Ellie about how she is seeing the situation with Margot and how it actually is. And I just thought that there was a little bit too much hijinks in here. I also found Ben to be just a really sweet character, to the point where at the end of the book I was questioning myself about how Talia Samuels can get me to root for a straight white man. There's so much that happens to him throughout the course of this book, and Ben is somebody that I would describe as a 3-year-old toddler on steroids. He gets super excited about everything, and he's so vibrant and he is so energetic. I love to see characters like that who just basically take the day as it comes, take the world as it is, and really just try and get through everything with a smile on their face. I absolutely loved the friendship that was between Ben and Margot, and I really, really enjoyed reading about the two of them. Something else that really struck me about this book is the representation and portrayal of a family member with dementia. My grandfather suffered with dementia for about 10 or 15 years or so before he died. So I don't have a whole lot of memories of him. He died when I was about 19, but for a lot of my formative years, he wasn't particularly himself. So I don't have a whole lot of memories with him where he was so cognitive that he knew exactly who I was. But in this book, Ellie has a really sweet relationship with her grandfather. They are basically as thick as thieves. They get along so well with one another. They flow really well with one another. So it's really heartbreaking to see the kind of breakdown of that relationship just because of dementia. When her grandfather will become clouded over with everything that's been going on, or will get confused by his surroundings or what's happening, and turns into a different person that Ellie can barely recognize. As somebody whose own family member did go through dementia, I thought it was so well portrayed and so well written. That kind of haze that they can go through and the way that they think that the world is going compared to how it actually is being portrayed. It was absolutely heartbreaking to read, but it was written so well and with so much respect. I don't know if Talia Samuels has any plans to bring anything else out, but I had really a great time with the Christmas swap. So if anything else does come, I'm really looking forward to going picking it up. Finally, I read something short but not quite so sweet, and that was The Christmas Appeal by Janice Hallett. This is a continuation of The Appeal, which I read in April of 2022, and when I tell you I inhaled that book, I didn't even stop to breathe reading it. This focuses once again on the Fairview players, but this time we are actually meeting them around Christmas time, and they are doing one of my favourite traditions from a British and Irish Christmas, a pantomime. This is where you would take a well-known fairy tale such as Cinderella or Red Riding Hood, or in this book, Jack and the Beanstalk, and you put on a performance of it around Christmas time with huge casts of people from the area. You might have a children's chorus which sings and dances a couple of songs that are in the top charts at the moment. You might have some kind of risque jokes that will go over kids' heads, but that adults in the audience are definitely here for. You might have some references to things that have been happening in the news, either locally, nationally, or internationally across the entire year. And it's kind of just a send up of things that have been happening, all told within the environs of a story that we all know so well. That is exactly what is happening here, and the entire group of Fairway players are kind of concentrating on getting everything perfect, except, of course, disaster happens on the actual day of the performance. It is a one-time only matinee show, and in the beanstalk, which Jack is going to be climbing up, a dead body has been found within it. Everybody who has been taking part is now a suspect, is being brought in for questioning, and we're trying to get to the bottom of how the body got there, whose body it is, and what the reasoning for it is. And it's not just us who's trying to figure out what's happening. We're also back with Femi and Charlotte, who are the two law students that we met at the beginning of the appeal. They have been sent on the case for the Fairway players by their professor, who has come out of semi-retirement to give them one more chance of stretching their brains with a topic. I really enjoy how this story is told because it is all told in the form of interview transcripts, it's all told in emails or telephone call transcripts, and I think that it's such an entertaining and such an engaging way to tell the story. It does make it flow really, really well, but it also can make it seem like there's no natural stop to the story. There's no point that I felt like I could put it down and say, okay, this is like the end of the chapter, or this is a paragraph break where I know I can go and get a cup of coffee, or I can go to the bathroom, or stretch my legs, or whatever I need to do. It never really felt like there was a specific moment where I could put the book down, because it always just felt like the story was rolling and rolling and rolling. But on the flip side, that does make this a really fast-paced story. I think I finished it within about a day and a half because, like I said, there's just no natural place to put it down. So you're always in the cusp of the action. There's always something happening. There's always a mystery to unravel. There's always a person who you've kind of got your hunches up about, but now you're finding out a little bit more about them. And I absolutely love that engaging way of telling a story. It's got all of the characters that we've come to know and hate to love and love to hate from the appeal, including Sarah Jane, including Penny, including a new couple of characters that we also haven't gotten to see before. And I really liked how it had that kind of new embrace of characters all mixed in really well with the people that we would have recognized from before. There is also a little bit of classism throughout this book, as there is a new family that has moved to the area and they also want to get involved with the pantomime. They want to get involved with telling the story either on stage or behind the stage, and you can definitely see Sarah Jane kind of looking down her nose at them. But I would definitely say to keep an eye on some people, because all that glitters isn't gold. There is, however, one character in here who pissed me off more than anyone else, and that was Joel Holiday OBE. I think over the summer in like the Queen's or the King's birthday honour list, he had gotten an OBE, and his wife was insistent that every single time you mention him, either orally or by letter, you had to put his title behind him because it was a legal requirement and you would be pissing off people if you didn't. I don't know how strict that is in terms of the actual day-to-day normality of it, but after about 20 or so pages, it just got so incredibly annoying and repetitive. And I have a feeling that that is exactly how Janice would make me feel if I was sitting in one of these town hall meetings. So that was just so well connected to real life. I've always got my sights on a Janice Hallett book. I know that The Examiner came out in 2024 and I still have to go and read it because I've got it on my Kindle, and like I said, it's really hard to know where the breaks have to come in this book, but I am so intrigued by what that story is going to bring for me. Those are all of the books that I wanted to read across winter and how I actually had gotten along with them. What was the best book that you read across the winter months that brought a little bit of warmth to the cold and chilly days? If you'd love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then in honour of the weather that's outside my window, just leave any kind of a snowy emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.